you can have your dream job 1 minute and the next minute you're unemployed. There's a difference between being hungry and being starving. And there are a lot of starving performers out there. Show them what they want and they will go, that's the girl.
Hello and welcome everybody to this week's episode of Dance Chat UK, the podcast where we delve into the vibrant world of professional dance. I'm your host Karina and I'm super excited for this week's episode with Christina Andrea. Christina is a very successful choreographer, teacher, mentor and obviously performer. We get into her work with pop icons such as Anastacia and Jessie J. We talk about her successful classes at Base and Pineapple. She has so much experience and so much advice to share. So enjoy your front row seat to this week's episode of Dance Chat UK. Welcome, Christina. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you've done so much in your career. You had an amazing career so far, and I'm sure it's going to go
fingers crossed
even further. And we will get into all your amazing choreography work and work as you do as a teacher and mentor and performer. But first, can you tell us a little bit about where you started? Like, where did you study?
Yeah,
how did you break into the industry?
So I'll try and do the quick version because I have been around for a while. I went to local ballet school when I was little.
Yes.
And I did ballet, jazz, tap, I think. That was kind of it. And I did Irish dancing randomly at my primary school. And then I went to Erdang. So I auditioned. And that was kind of back in the day when there wasn't that much information about the colleges or, you know, I was told that Erdang was a ballet school and I probably wouldn't get in because it was a ballet school. But I came down to London and I had an audition for Arts Ed, Mount View and Erdang and Tiffany.
Okay.
And I really messed up my Mount View audition. We won't go into that, but I definitely messed that up. I wasn't the right person for Arts Ed. I'm not a singer. I could just about carry a tune, but I was, you know, they were a very singy school. And I got in to Tiffany's and to Erdang and I just fell in love with Erdang. There was a teacher called Carl Paris who did this stunning, strong jazz class and I was just like, oh, I have to go there.
Yeah.
So I went to Erdang, graduated, was very much, we were kind of given, we had agents coming and I had kind of two paths I could go down. I had two agents that were really interested in me, one that was looking for musical theatre representation and one that was for TV.
Yeah. And
it was so strange because I'd done all this musical theatre training and then I was sort of like, oh, maybe I could be in Hollyoaks. Sort of not quite sure.
So more down the acting route.
Yeah, sliding doors kind of which route to go in. Anyway, I ended up going with the musical theatre agent. And so my first year out, I was getting, I think I got like maybe one or two auditions for musicals and maybe a few for cruises. And I graduated straight into this TV show called Britannia High. I don't know if you know it. It was like kind of big. It was a while ago. It was on ITV, I think. And basically everyone who graduated that year went into Britannia High. And we were just extras. But, but we thought we had made it.
Yeah.
And it was filming in Manchester and everyone who graduated that year went up to Manchester and was in this show. And on about the second day, I was stretching in the background of a scene.
Okay.
And someone ripped my hamstring. They were like, let's go, and pushed my leg up. And my hamstring went,
oh my God.
So that was me out. So I've just graduated. And I've torn my hamstring and any audition that I was going to go to, any kick on the left, no chance. So it was like awful, but actually it got me into choreography a lot quicker. So I had to kind of get creative and where I could no longer trust that I could nail a cruise audition or a jazz audition or a musical theatre audition, I started creating choreography for myself. I started then to teach classes. So I worked at LA Fitness, which was the gym. I think they closed business now, but I worked at a gym and I got free studio space. And
amazing.
So I put on a class.
Yeah.
And I used to charge £5. And my two best friends would come and they wouldn't pay. But because I wasn't paying for studio hire at that time, I wasn't losing any money. So initially I had two students and then maybe I'd get one that paid, so I'd make a £5. And then eventually I'd got four that paid. And over time that built and sort of snowballed into its own thing. And then I randomly decided to enter my dance company that I'd created into Got to Dance.
Yeah.
which is the Sky One program, which I hadn't actually seen. I was very like, just have a thought and do it. I'm kind of glad that I was, but I did that. So I had all these things sort of bubbling. I had the teaching bubbling. I had sort of created a company, and the company I'd kind of created to put myself front and center, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
I'd sort of put myself in the middle of it, you know.
Why not?
That's where I was. And we did really well on Got to Dance. My teaching was going well. And then I got an audition through for a singer called Jessie J.
Yeah.
And she didn't
we all
have...
know.
We know now. But at the time, I thought it was Jesse James, which I think was... Don't quote me, but I think it was like Sandra Bullock's husband, and I think it was like a country and western singer. Anyway,
all right.
I thought that potentially I was going to do like a country and western song. I didn't really care. I was just happy to be working. And when I arrived and saw this really cool person arrive, I was like, oh, that person's got star quality. And that ended up being the Do It Like a Dude video.
So she wasn't very famous at that point?
Been out at all. So Do It Like a Dude was the first single.
Okay.
And that came out, and that was when everyone was on Facebook. You know how everyone's on like whatever, TikTok now. It was Facebook, and I remember I hadn't seen the video, but my Facebook blew up. It was, oh my God, you're in this video. And so it kind of launched me as maybe a credible commercial dancer.
Yes.
And then from that I did Price Tag as well. So the next video with Jessie J.
Okay.
And I think that sort of set me off, with the confidence to know that I could book those jobs, and also with the credibility. Like when you've got a name like that behind you, it isn't that hard to get in the room. It's not that hard to be put forward for stuff or to be taken seriously by agents. So I then got a few, not all of them, but a few commercial agencies and started to work commercially. But the choreography was always the thing for me. I kind of didn't want to do any of those jobs more than once. I was like, I did maybe 7 music videos in my time, and then I was like, cool,
great,
I don't done that, tick. I did some really amazing artists. I did videos with Mary J. Blige. I've done Natalie Imbruglia as my first ever video. I did Pixie Lott, Jessie J. But then I was like, tick, there's still like more that I'd like to do. So I went down the choreography route kind of sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
And it was just a case of emailing some of the agents I was already with and saying, like, I want to be a choreographer. And at the time, it was Rudai, who Rudai then became Love Rudai, who then are now in their third incoming as 3 Rings. But back in the day, it was the initial Rudai that I ended up going with for management for like 13 years.
Wow.
And they took me on really as kind of, it was basically a family business. It was Charlotte and Stuart. But if they didn't have the capacity to fill jobs, then there would be me. So initially I was really just the third wheel.
Yeah, as a choreographer mainly, or a performer as well?
Well, I was already working for them as a performer.
Yeah, okay.
But as a choreographer and as a teacher. So I then had I've always had my own classes.
Yeah.
And that worked really well for like 13 years.
Yeah, so for you, choreography and the performing work kind of went hand in hand. It wasn't like one first, then the other.
I've always still liked to perform. I have never really subscribed to that belief that you have to give one up completely.
Yeah.
I have been in experiences, well, I can definitely see that it is easier if you're just wearing the choreographer's hat. If you're trying to do both, then you're potentially splitting your focus. So you've got to be sure you can do it and be sure that it makes sense. Now, I'm quite happy to just put on my choreographer's hat and stand back. But there was definitely a period in my 20s when I wanted to do a bit of everything and at least be able to. So I was only interested in sort of working with choreographers that I really liked or artists that I really liked. So I didn't go, I barely went to any dance auditions, to be honest. Okay. It was quite a lot of direct bookings, quite a lot because of like my image and how I looked. They'd be like, hey, we need some kind of prison-y looking, lesbian looking chick. And I'd be like,
that's me.
It's me.
I was going to ask you about that because I always felt like I needed to fit in. I couldn't get tattoos or, if you want to be that showgirl or, in a company or work for Disney, any sort of brand, then you can't be tattooed and you need to fit in. Do you feel like your look helped you to get work, or did it also hinder you in certain...
it's still something we talk about today. Like I was running one of my programs last week and we were specifically talking about it, the difference between the soldier dancer. They look the same, they dance the same, they don't have any distinguishing marks. as a choreographer, it's great to work with that.
Yeah.
Because everything looks clean.
Yeah.
There's no problems. There's no problematic tattoos or whatever. So there's definitely, as I say, 90% of the industry is looking for that.
Do you think it's still like that?
I mean, yes and no.
Yeah.
I think more so now we're celebrating individuality. But for me, I'd say I was never going to be a soldier.
Yes.
So from my experience, I was only ever going to be this. And I felt like by being able to package that from quite a young age, I mean, it wasn't even that young. I went to college later. So I guess I maybe knew who I was a bit more.
Yeah, that definitely helps.
When I graduated, I had like hair, I had long hair and maybe one tattoo. And I got told off for having that tattoo. I got
in college? Or
in college. And I spoke
to...
it was Miss Pope from Erdang, and we spoke about it. We were at a beautiful ballet teacher, Christine Beckley's funeral the other week.
Yeah.
And she said, oh, do you remember when I told you off for your tattoo? You were the first girl with a tattoo at Erdang. I said, yes, Miss Pope. Of course I remember, because she told me I couldn't be in the summer show.
Because of your tattoo?
Yeah, because the summer I was in it. But she was very annoyed because it was a period piece. It was set in the 40s.
Okay.
And she was, you're never going to work.
Could you not cover it up?
Yeah, I did. It was just the tattoo I've got on my neck. I mean, look what I've got now. But
yeah.
that was, that was back in 2006, 7.
Okay.
So we're talking a while ago. It was very
times.
much, we were very much told, be a blank canvas and let the casting director picture.
Yes.
It's not been my experience.
Yeah.
My experience has been show them what they want and they will go, that's the girl.
Yes.
But also, I've never been the romantic lead. I've never been that girl. So for me, it just seemed to make sense. I had a shaved head for ages. And also from the jobs that I got that were high profile, things like Jessie J, I then did Adam Lambert, where we were like glampire vampires. Like I have a brand. It kind of always makes sense. So the tattoos make sense. And I've often, with Jessie J, it was the director, Emil Nava, who just dropped me a message on Facebook. I'd worked with him before. He said, do you still look like this? Which was shaved head. And I was like, yeah. He said, right, great. You're booked in a video.
Amazing.
Because they wanted prison-y looking gals for this video.
So it's maybe not all the jobs, but
100%.
the ones that look for that, you book them.
Yeah, and sometimes that will be a commercial. Sometimes that will be something, and commercials pay much better than music videos. So I have found that it has helped me. I would never tell anybody just to go out and get loads of tats and shave their head if it doesn't fit their branding.
Exactly. It needs to be you. Like you need to embody that.
And I'm sure there's lots of stuff that I would have missed out on. I did the Brits back in, I think, 2013. And I had the shaved head with the top knot. Yeah. And Lyndon, who was choreographing it, said, wow, we really like you, but everyone's got these long horse ponytails. And he was like, can you get some weave? I was like, for the Brits, absolutely. Yeah. So I went out and got weave in the top so that I could have one of those long ponytails so that I could look like everybody else. Mm-hmm. Some things you can manipulate. Some things you're just not going to be right for.
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah, I think it's a mix. I think if you feel different, if you feel queer, if you feel eccentric, shine that up. Make sure it's well packaged and it's palatable. And then sell that. And if you feel, I'm just a plain Jane, you're not plain, you're a soldier, go for that version.
Yeah,
make sure that your choreography is super clean and make sure that your image is clean.
Yeah, also kind of depends on which dance style you're doing. Yeah. If you are a showgirl, if you are doing musical theatre and stuff, if you want to go for those.
Oh yeah, I would never get those jobs. It's ridiculous. If I went to a showgirl lineup, they'd be like, who do you think you are? Whereas the minute I walk into a commercial audition for a brand, for a hero girl, for something, for a sports commercial, for an artist, it makes sense.
You pull focus as well. People look at you like, oh.
Yeah, you want to pull focus, but not too much focus. Depends who you're working with, right?
Exactly. So you have been in the industry for a while, obviously. Yes. What do you think is like the key for a long-lasting career? How do you not get burnt out?
Wow. I mean, I would... You know that thing that we have, that absolute love for what we do?
Yeah.
Like we have to keep that little pilot light alight.
Yeah.
Because that has been the one thing where I just couldn't do anything else. I couldn't do something else with my life.
Yeah.
So for me, it's remembering that little girl who would get up at 6 a.m. to practice her ballet, who I didn't live anywhere near London. I didn't even live anywhere near a theatre. Mm-hmm. but somehow made it into a dance college and somehow made it to London. Like, I've already come so far.
Definitely.
That I always try and remember that, because, well, I mean, what you need is a lot of tolerance, a lot of patience, and to ride this a roller coaster. You know, we're one of those industries where you can have your dream job 1 minute, and the next minute you're unemployed, and you're basically at the bottom of the pile again. You know, I always feel like every job is my last job. I'm like, that's it, finished. Never going to work again. Doesn't matter what level it is. Doesn't matter. It doesn't. I know it does matter, because I know that your CV does mean you're more employable, probably. But it always feels when the job's finished that you're never going to work again.
I always feel like that.
So annoying.
When the curtain goes down, I'm
That's
like,
it.
that was my last show ever.
I literally looked back. I was doing my taxes the other day, and I was like, you have filled a tax return in for 17 years without taking another job. You've never had to work since you became self-employed in any other job. That proves that you have a career.
That's incredible.
But I still think, that's it, unemployed. Unemployable, I've been cancelled.
The line between self-employed and unemployed sometimes is a fine one.
It's a few hours sometimes. So
definitely.
you have to just remember the love. And for me, if it's quiet, I focus on input. So a lot of my job is output, whether it's teaching or choreographing. It's ga, 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 ga. So if I'm having a quiet moment, I go, okay, it's time to get inspired. I'm still a human. It's time for me to get myself ready for the next job that's never going to come, but feels like it's never going to come, but it is. And so I'll just make sure I'm getting to classes and going to see shows, going to art galleries, getting out into nature, like just getting inspired and recalibrating. Because although it feels like it's never going to come again, there is always that next phone call, that next email, and you're busy again.
And then you want to be ready when that audition comes, isn't it?
You want to have felt rested. You want to have felt you're not, because you can't. I know we want to. We can't just work all the time.
No.
Because we will, like you said, burn out. There was a period of time, I think because I toured with Anastacia for 5 years. It wasn't 5 years continuously, but we did 2 years in one show, 2 years in the other, and then like an extra year of corporate gigs. And I had the time of my life. But I remember a picture of me that I took, and there was nothing behind my eyes. And I was sad. But it was just because there was nothing else in my life. All I was doing was working, and I was exhausted. And I was like, this is burnout.
And there's only so long you can get this excitement going. Like you do the first few shows and you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then after a while it becomes routine. Anything becomes routine after a while, even if it's the best job you've ever had.
100%.
So.
And I also think I ended up living in sort of like an adrenaline state, because I was nervous before the show because I had to put it together. I was nervous during rehearsals. I'm nervous during the first few shows. And then I was like, I've been on adrenaline for a really long time. And eventually, it has to give. So, being able to ride those chapters out is how you kind of survive longevity. And know that there are chapters. I've been through the pandemic, the industry being closed down. There's different chapters. So I always think if it's changing, it's all right to be in transition as well. And that can be hard because productivity is celebrated. So it's like I should be churning stuff out. There should be quantifiable stuff all the time.
Yeah. And you see social media and you think everybody else is doing so much work and you're the only one sitting at home, which is...
And sometimes my work can't be posted. I do lots of stuff where I coach actors and singers for shows.
Yes.
Some of those actors don't want you to know they have a dance coach.
Yes.
That's top secret.
Yes.
So I can be working 6 months with a high-level actor and have nothing other than a bit of money in the bank to show for it.
Who did you coach?
Well, I can't say. But I actually, some people I'm not allowed to say, some people I can say. But, I can say it if it's on my Instagram. And if it's never been mentioned, then I can't because... not everyone wants to. But that's one of those things. It's like, I know I'm working and I'm doing really good work. But it's not an Instagram post, therefore it doesn't count somehow in some elements of how we portray ourselves on social media today.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about sort of what work are you most proud of versus what's your biggest credit? Is that the same? Does it measure up, or have you done some choreographies or like a concept video that you're really proud of and actually that doesn't really count as a big credit?
It's a really interesting question. One of the I remember one of the moments I was absolutely lit up was I presented live for Comic Relief.
Wow.
Now, Comic Relief is a charity.
Yeah.
So I didn't get paid for that.
Yeah.
But I think it was like 2015, 2014. And I had a segment live on the BBC where I was presenting.
Yeah.
And I was presenting a dance-a-thon. So I was the funk girl. And I had celebrity dancey peeps behind me. So I had like Kimberly Wyatt and Adam Garcia and loads of sort of the Comic Relief people behind following my moves. And I was teaching out to the whole of Wembley. And it was also going live on the telly.
That sounds amazing.
I tell you, I'd been practicing what I was going to do for probably about 2 months beforehand. I was so nervous. I was nervous I was going to swear. I kept saying, keep it funky, because I don't know because I was nervous,
Yeah.
But when I got home from that, and also I came off the stage and this guy came up to me and he said, you did really well, and I would know. And I said, who's that? And someone said, that's Richard Curtis, who is the director of Comic Relief and also the director of Four Weddings and a Funeral and all the big, British rom-coms.
Yeah.
And it was his event. And I was like, oh, I did really well. Like, wow. And the relief of doing that. So that's one of those jobs that was high profile, but wasn't high paid. Wasn't paid. But I was so proud of myself. And, I have footage from it and I just think, wow.
Yeah.
Like that was sick. Claudia Winkleman introducing me. That's
amazing.
Cool.
Yeah, that's
that was cool. So that was one of those that ticked. And a lot of my jobs I've been really proud of. I think the one that makes the most sense, that is the most cohesive, is when I was the choreographer and show director for Anastacia.
Yes.
Because I'd been to see Pink on tour a few years before, and I'd heard, I don't even know if this was true, but I'd heard that her choreographer was in her show.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, what I would do.
That's
because
the dream job.
I wasn't ready to give up dancing, but I didn't like dancing other people's choreography because I didn't like lots of people's choreography. I was very, very fussy. But I was like, but if she can do it, then I can do it. And then eventually down the line, I find myself in a position where I think, oh my God, that's happened. I'm actually, and so the way the setup was, it was Anastacia and two dancers. So it's not a big piece where I need to be eyes out looking at the formations. There's two of us either side. So it was quite an intimate setup. And choreographing that. And I'd said to Craig Logan, Anastasia's manager, I said, I didn't even know if I could do it. He said, well, we knew you could do it. That's why we asked you to do it. Like, we wouldn't get you to do it if we didn't think you could. But, getting to do that as a creative and then getting to tour it was just like, my mind was absolutely blown.
That's amazing.
Just
How did you get that job?
I got the job through Gareth Walker.
Okay.
So amazing choreographer. He, I believe he took the job over from Kim Gavin. I believe that's the case. I think it's the string of choreographers.
Yeah.
Kim Gavin initially had Anastacia and then Gareth took over and then Gareth brought myself and my partner at the time. We were in as dancers. We were either side. And we did, I want to say GAY or Heaven. I think it was GAY at Heaven. We did some one-off gigs. And then the tour came round and we were like, oh, Gareth, we would kill to be in this show. And he said, well, you're going to have to audition as singers and chances of me getting that job are going down the pipe. And then he said, well, we might have light, screens. It might not even be dancers. It might be male dancers. It just seemed like every opportunity of us getting the job was just getting further and further away.
Yeah.
And but eventually, come rehearsals, they decided to use us. So Gareth was the director, and we did 2 years of the Ultimate Collection tour. And then on the next show, or partway through that show, Gareth put me up to assistant choreographer, and I think I was teaching in. I think when my partner left the show and I brought Sarah in, I then taught the show in. So he was like, look, I've got you credited as assistant. And then the next show, Anastacia just said, it's your turn, honey. So that's how that progression
So it was
went.
very much sort of a recommendation, people knowing you. Yeah.
And also with that situation, I'd been touring with the show for 2 years. So although we created a new show, we had a dynamic.
Yeah.
And that was very much the thing that Anastacia was comfortable with. She said, we work well. This works, so let's keep going. And you're with me all the time. It makes sense that you're, for this show, with me as we continue moving.
You know her already. How well do you know her?
I mean, we're not besties, but you know how each other works and you're already in a flow.
Do you ever feel pressure to get the next job and be successful? And how do you deal with that?
Yeah, definitely.
Pressure? Yeah.
Definitely. Self-pressure.
Yeah,
it's probably
from yourself.
Because no one cares.
Yeah.
Like my mum probably cares a bit, but I think she just wants me to be happy. So, but it's not like I've got like she doesn't really care. I'm sure she's excited if I do get something. She likes it if I'm on the telly, then she can show her mates. But yeah, self-pressure. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think we all have it. We just want to do it. And there's that mixture of just wanting to dance and perform, and then there is that pressure of wanting to keep your profile and go on to the next thing, or for it to make sense in a linear way. And I just don't, my career it's not linear.
Yes. I don't think you can have a linear career in what we do.
No, it is this.
Yeah.
But like you said earlier, some of these moments can be the hardest and the least enjoyable, and some of those moments can be the most rewarding. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's definitely about like accepting that pressure, accepting it's part of like wanting to do well, but not letting it destroy me. Ian, my agent, has a wonderful saying. He says, there's a difference between being hungry and being starving. And there are a lot of starving performers out there. And you can tell a starving performer.
Yeah.
In an audition, on Instagram, on whatever, in a dance class, you can see if someone's starving, and it is off-putting.
Yeah. So,
I mean, I always, maybe the day that I finish one job, I'm like, and what's next? It's like, just sit on this one, just relax and enjoy this one. But the way I deal with it is I kind of work across many strands. So I just make sure that, I'm always busy. It doesn't mean I'm always choreographing.
Yeah.
But because I teach and I coach and I do programs, not that regularly, but that's something I can fit in. I do it every April, but I only really do one a year. I judge. So dance competition season is insane.
Yeah.
But also something.
When is that?
I mean, it's from like October to May. So it is.
Okay. That's a long season.
Quite a long season, but we're not working the whole time.
Yeah.
But it's something I adore. And it goes hand in hand with all the rest, and I choreograph and I still perform.
Mm-hmm. Do you kind of feel like choreographing and teaching go hand in hand in a way?
Yeah, I think choreographing and teaching go more hand in hand than choreographing and dancing do. Mm-hmm. They're very different skills.
Yeah.
A dancer needs to be a soldier. They need to be able to listen, digest, pick it up, remember it, and stay quiet.
Yeah.
Like, really ideally. Mm-hmm. And a creative is 50% a counsellor. And if you're a teacher, you're 50% a counsellor. Yeah. You're making sure everybody in the room feels seen, feels heard, feels appreciated, that you're fixing problems, you're constantly doing that in the room, as well as teaching the moves. As a choreographer, you're dealing with the artist, you're making sure that they're comfortable, you're making sure that the manager is happy, you're making sure that the sound and the lighting are happy, and you're bringing the family together, and da-da-da-da-da. It's all about personalities.
Yes.
And you don't have to remember it. You just have to, you got to make it, get it out, and let somebody else remember it. Yeah. So I think they're quite different skill sets. And not every dancer is going to be a good choreographer, and not every choreographer is going to be a good dancer. You don't have to be. You got to have a different kind of mindset and a different kind of work ethos.
Yeah. Do you find it hard when you do work as a performer, to step back?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I'm a nightmare. I'm about to say less so now. Is that even true? I don't think I've done any work recently where I'm not. If I do adverts these days, they're normally acting adverts. So I've had a few. I was being a DJ, so I had to move a little bit. But like I'll do like character parts for adverts that are more about my look, and they're more acting. I definitely found myself being resistant last time I was directed, and I was like, ego, stop it. You are the talent, they are the choreographer.
Yeah.
But yes, 100%.
It's difficult to swap back. But I do find also, I think before I started choreographing, I was so hungry to be in charge and stuff. Like now I actually do work as a choreographer and one director. I find it easier to step back because I'm like, oh, I'm not in charge. I don't have to think about everything today. I can just sit here and, wait for instructions.
Totally. And also today, I used to think everything had to be my idea.
Yeah.
Whereas now I love it if someone goes, what about this? I'm like, that's excellent.
Yeah.
Because I've already got my ideas, but that somehow come from my idea. So I'm like, yeah, that's, there's a difference between an organic idea and someone being pushy in a rehearsal room.
Yeah.
That we wouldn't appreciate,
Yes.
but I do appreciate working
Input.
collaboratively. And I think, like you said, like we change as we go along. I found it very hard not to put myself front and center when I was younger. It was I still really wanted to be seen. I still really wanted to perform. And now I'm so happy. Other than missing the first night buzz, when you actually, as a choreographer, you don't get that.
Yeah.
So when I was working with Dido on her tour, I'm just watching the show.
Yeah.
So I don't get that.
Yeah.
I still get the yes, you did it, you nailed it, it's amazing. But I don't get the sweat.
It's
and the
almost
live.
anticlimactic,
yes,
isn't
it
it?
is. You're
Because
like, well done, you.
Yeah. You sit there in the first show and you're like, yeah, that went well.
Exactly. You don't get the buzz or the nerves. So that's one thing you have to learn is different. But you also don't have to put on a crop top and shake around the stage. You know what I mean?
Which you appreciate when you get older. I'm like, yeah, you wear this costume, you look
I can just
great.
have my little tracksuit on and I'm like, you look amazing.
Exactly. I'm here warm and you look great.
Yes, there's
In your
definitely perks to it.
Yeah, yeah. Do you feel like choreography is still very male dominated or can you see a change?
Yeah, I do. And I don't know if it's relevant, but because like how relevant is gender when it comes to choreography, because movement is movement and movement isn't really gendered. So there's a bigger question there. But I mean, there are a lot of male choreographers. The women that I know are badass.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of them, there's a lot of queer women as well, actually, that are in that sort of position. A lot of dancers that I grew up with, like your Alex Steeles and your Suzette Brissettes, who are badass, bossing it, female choreographers.
Yeah. But you always felt respected when you were on a job.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, not always by the rest of the crew.
Okay. Yeah.
I've definitely had situations where male, I'm not going to name any names, but other parts of the company have been disrespectful.
Okay.
Not particularly, they may have been disrespectful if I was a man, that could just have been their personality, but a little bit dismissive, definitely. And then you have to just make sure they know that's not the way to talk to a young lady.
Yeah, yeah. I found that when I was a choreographer and a dancer, so I was in costume, I feel like then it's really hard to get the respect of being like, no, I'm the creative here as well, and I want it like this.
Definitely. And that goes back to the conversation about if you're doing both.
Yeah.
If you're in costume for anything, it's definitely hard
Yeah.
to be seen as one of the creative team. I think that's where it is important to have that differentiation. Yeah.
I prefer just
Yes, I do
be
now. It's because,
creative,
I was definitely younger and wanted to do a bit of everything. But now, especially if a job comes through and the option is to be be a dancer on it, Ian will say, no, let's get you out. We want you watching the work. That's the job.
Yeah.
Let somebody else do the...
Yeah.
now I'm like, yeah, absolutely.
People might know you from your very popular classes, Pineapple and Bass. You're all over the place and super full always. What is the key to running like a class? Keep it going, keep it full.
It's a journey. They're not always full.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing you have to ride. Promotion is important. I've gone through phases during my career when I've gone in and out of promoting. I've gone in and out of filming classes. I went through maybe 2 or 3 years where I just didn't film class. I was like, class is not about... But basically, I go against any trend that is happening.
Yeah.
So before everyone was filming, I was filming. And I've got all these terribly low-quality videos on YouTube that are just filmed from the back, of like held like this, and it's got... awful, but I did it years ago, like 2014, 2015, I was filming all my classes. And then it became a really big business. All the American teachers did it, and it was like you had to have it professionally filmed and da-da-da.
Yes.
And then class became about the video.
Yeah.
And I started to stop filming mine because I was like, but that's not the point either, because then you're only picking the people that look good and you're spoiling the quality of class to make your video look good.
Yeah.
So I sort of stopped doing it for ages. And yeah, I'll be honest, like my classes were probably quieter because, I mean, they've always maintained, which I've been really lucky. But I've noticed that now I've started posting again, they're busier.
Yeah.
So I guess just there is always that benchmark to measure it against. What I do now is I make sure I don't pick select groups. We sweep the camera, we do big groups and we sweep across and we edit it, try and get as many different people in.
Yeah.
So I try and make sure that my class space is all about inclusivity and equality and being where you're at. And I try and make sure that comes out across. So promotion is important. And then it's about community.
Yeah.
You know, what's mad is I've had lots of different eras of dancers, and then they grow up and they move on, or they book loads of jobs and they grow up. Like people will outgrow teachers. And so for teachers, they have to ride that journey. You can't hold someone over a barrel and be like, you used to come to my class, therefore you should always, like, you have to get used to the fact that you will be deserted. You will have a group of people who love you, and then you will see that they have gone.
But that's also kind of a credit to you, no?
Yeah.
If they came to your classes regularly
and
then they
get
booked
work.
a big job, then...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have people, like, what's quite interesting is when I look back at my really old videos and I see who's in them.
Yeah.
And I'm like...
They're like, she's dancing with this person now.
100%. I'm like, he's got his own classes now. He's just dancing with Dua Lipa. That's so... Do you recognise it? It's like a baby there. But yeah. So it's amazing being part of that journey. So for me, it's important to create community.
Yeah.
And we have coffee club on Thursdays every week so that everyone who comes to class can come and chat and hang out for a bit. And we don't talk about industry.
That. Yeah.
We just talk about...
That's also important.
Yeah, just because otherwise it becomes another exhausting, painful thing.
Yeah.
So
otherwise class becomes like an audition and then socials afterwards become networking.
Exactly.
And you don't want that.
And I think like class is an audition, but let's not call it that because it's not. So there's an element that you are being seen, but no, it's not an audition.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. Like any time when you're being seen by your agent or by a choreographer, take yourself seriously. It's a good thing. But no, it's not an audition where you're not hustling for a job. You're planting seeds.
Yeah.
And the same, networking. I hate the term networking. I would say I'm a terrible networker, but I'm actually a really good conversationalist and I find connection with people really easily.
Yeah.
That's really what networking is.
But then that means you do it very naturally.
Yeah.
You don't force it.
Hopefully.
You don't go to like...
But if I ever feel like I have to do the networking, I suck at it. I'm awful, makes myself cringe, and I never get anything from it.
Yeah.
So I just try and make genuine connections. I try and make people feel seen. I try and make sure people feel appreciated for deciding to spend their money and come and train with me.
Yeah.
Because there's so many classes out there.
Yeah. Which is so nice. But and I think like the filming, when people do pick groups and then they film it with the same group over and over and you just sit there, that makes people feel so bad, and you get that feeling that you get in auditions and you don't want that when you go to class.
And it's tricky because I think some of that's really good training, like resilience training. Like if you're that character, go to those classes, get scared, get intimidated, rise above it, fight for that, fight to be in that group, and then no audition will ever mess with you.
Yeah.
But not everybody's that character. Some people are soft, creative souls that need to be nurtured, and there's space for us all in this industry. So also, if you're paying for a class and the teacher's filming for half an hour of it, you should be getting a third of your money back or a half of your money back. Like that's
100%.
a consideration. But also lots of people love getting their videos. So they actually go to the class so they can have their video and they get free promotion. So it is, everyone's helping everybody in some level. It's up to you, I guess, where you invest your money and where you want to go with that.
Obviously, you create a lot of choreography for classes, like every week, several classes a week. Do you ever train? Like,
absolutely.
How do you get a new inspiration?
I mean, Stuart and I, my old manager, used to have a saying of like, I mean, I'm vegan, so this is not really the right saying, but he'd say, oh, you got a bit of a turkey this week. If you had after churning out good routines, maybe 4 or 5, you always get one that's a bit of a turkey. And it is hard. sometimes I find that I've like repeated movements and I'm like, oh yeah, I've done this before. This is the same old stuff.
Yeah.
So sometimes sometimes what I'll do is I'll just do a week of throwbacks and I'm like, I just need a break, like a moving break.
Yeah.
Because I don't ever take time off teaching. So I basically teach 52 weeks a year.
Wow, that's intense.
Forever. And I remember before the pandemic, I was like, am I just going to make up routines forever? And then the pandemic hit and the universe was like, no. You're not. You're going to sit down. So I guess I learned from that. And also when I was touring, I was having big times out from teaching and I was always just so hungry to get back. So now that I'm more based in London, I have to pace myself.
Yeah.
If I'm feeling, there's sometimes I push through and I just go, come on. And then sometimes I go, no, it's not happening this week. Teacher throwback. I have hundreds of routines that I can pull out the bag. So if I need to and I'll do some throwbacks, then that will just give me a week to not create.
And people will love it.
They'll
be like, oh, we've done this before.
Yeah, I'm good at this one.
I already know this.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, this year's been great. There has been some great music out this year.
Yeah.
We've had Tyler, we've had Dua Lipa, we've had Sabrina Carpenter, we've had Tate McRae, like big artists that have got big music videos with dancers in them. It's a good time to be a dancer and a choreographer.
Tate herself is an amazing dancer.
Right? So it's great, whereas there's periods of time when that's not trendy.
Yeah.
Where they're not using dancers in music videos, where it's a different style, it's indie, or it's more emo or whatever, and then you haven't got any songs and you have to just do Janet Jackson or Britney throwbacks. And I think I have done all of those songs. So, yeah, at the moment, I'm finding the music really fun and inspiring and good to dance to. I mean, you know, we're all dancing to the same songs.
Yeah.
It's literally a race to who can get it out first. But we were talking about sort of popularity. People want to dance to those songs.
Yeah.
So they do occasionally want to dance to a Janet or a Britney, but they do also want to dance to their new favourite song that's out. So, you know, it's not just about me and my artistry. I'm providing a service and I have to show up for the way that I want it to be, rather than me just going, this is my favourite song.
Yeah.
And everyone going, we've not even heard of it. And I'm like, yes, but you must pay me to dance to it. No, I'm providing a service. I've got to make dancers up to songs they want to dance to.
But then it's even harder to choreograph to a song that you might not actually like.
I never do it.
You don't do it?
No.
Yeah. Do you find inspiration in teaching then for your like choreography jobs? Like do you try out things during class?
Almost completely different.
Okay.
Class choreography, and then, I mean, what I'd say is I know from class what shapes look really good on the stage because stage choreography has to be so much bigger, much sharper, much more dynamic in the space. Class choreography, it's all about the boom, ga-ga-ga, shaka-ga, all the intricacies. You don't have time to do that when you're doing a stage show. You have to go boom, clap, boom, move to the other side of the stage. Okay, that's one number done. We've got 3 more numbers to go. You know, you have to churn it out. So
there's also that rehearsal period that might be limited and you need to think about that. Yeah.
It's totally different. Whereas I will sculpt a class choreography so that it's got all these different musicalities. So obviously I want them to have the same quality. I want them to have musicality. I want them to have texture. But I would never use a class choreography in a live show because it just would look like wedged in. Live show stuff has to have a different quality. It's much more, and also class quality is always about the solo dancer. Whereas live show, it's about the formations and the travelling and we dance as a clump here and then we split out and then we change through.
Yeah, 100%.
You can spend a lot of your time strutting about.
Yeah.
You're not necessarily doing lots of steps.
Yeah.
So
that's the funny thing
when
you go to an audition for a live show, you do all this choreography. It makes me laugh so much. And then you see the boys in the actual live show going
standing, 100%.
Like it's the most basic moves. Yeah. I'm like, okay, and so many people got cut because they couldn't do all that crazy choreography in the audition.
Not, unless there is a high budget show, there is not time.
Yeah,
you want to get some of it because you want, as a choreographer, you want to get some of your stylistic stuff out. But you also have to be really realistic about our job is to get the job done in the time we have to do it. They don't suddenly go, oh, you haven't finished. Here's 2 more days.
Yes.
That's not how it works.
No.
It's like, I have this many days, which is never quite enough. So you just have to fit it in and make it.
Then we do a freestyle.
Yeah. 2 counts of 8. Right, exactly. So it's filling all those bits in. And then you might get a really lovely chorus or a dance break or something.
Exactly.
So they run parallel, but I barely ever do they kind of cross-pollinate.
you seem very confident. You come across very confident. You know who you are. Have you always been this way, or was it like a journey?
Yeah, I think I have. I've always been quite like a bit of a big mouth. I mean, like obviously on a personal level, like we all have our demons and we all have our journey, but I am like good with who I am, and I have always really known who I am and what I like and what I'm about.
Yeah.
And I think if you know that, not everyone, like, there's no way everyone likes me. There's no way that I'm everyone's cup of tea. But I do know that I attract the right people who I then would get on with. So yeah, I have kind of always been, I've definitely got better as a human being as I've got older. I prefer myself in my 30s. I was a bit of a toe rag in my 20s. But I've mellowed.
Yeah.
I've definitely mellowed, but yeah, I have always sort of definitely been quite clear on who I am and been quite a confident on the outside kind of person. I mean, I get really bad nerves. I get really bad, like, it's not stage fright, but I over prepare, before a job. I'm not someone who's cocky. Mm-hmm. I'm not arrogant. I wouldn't get a job and be like, well, obviously I can do that.
Yeah.
I get a job and I go, oh, I have to actually do this now, and I prep and I research. And part of the thing that I love doing is over preparing and researching, and how much time have I got? How many different types of research and prep can I do? Mm-hmm. I go into things quite geekily.
Same.
Yeah, but I enjoy that about myself, and I think I kind of celebrate that about who I am and what I've got to bring. But I'm also quite cheeky and quite confident with it, which kind of balances quite well.
Which feeds into having a voice as a choreographer, I guess, if you know who you are as a person. And
yeah,
know who you are
I definitely was more of a tyrant when I was younger. I was more like bossy.
Okay, yeah.
I remember when we got to dance, I made every dancer in the troupe do the whole performance one at a time. It's just not necessary. Really, maybe it was necessary, but it was very like, dictatorship.
Yeah.
And I have definitely mellowed, and I work with people differently because of how I like to be worked with, I think, But yeah.
But I find it like as a young choreographer, young creative, you have been taught a certain way. Like when you're obviously in dance school, dance college, that's how you know.
Yes.
A work environment is
fierce and fearsome.
Exactly. And then when you're on the other side, you're like, now I'm going to be this strict. But then you realize actually the work can be done in other ways as well.
Totally. Yeah, you only learn when you go on a job with somebody who's completely nurturing, and you're like, oh, that was such a nice experience.
And the job got done.
And everybody had a good time, and that's how I want to be.
Yeah.
I've definitely been inspired by those sorts of people.
So you can
I normally find the people that do the dictator thing or do the normally they've not prepped, or they're insecure, or they've got something to prove, which is what I was like when I was younger. I had something to prove.
Yeah.
And with more wisdom and experience, I find that's needed a lot less. People just like get the job done.
Yeah, and then you can be part of that positive change in the industry. When do you get like that feeling of, oh, I love what I do?
Do you know what? I get it the most working with absolute novices and beginners.
Yeah.
I mean, I do get it if I make some really fancy choreography or I make something that looks really good. I'm like, whoa. But the heart stuff, when I work with one-on-one, normally with actors or singers that are doing performances, like TV stuff. So when I was working on Hetty Feather, and I worked with the actors. So we did a Christmas musical theatre extravaganza special. It was sort of like hip-hop urchins. And I worked with some of the actors in that who were just, they don't really want to dance, or they've got their own insecurities or their own brand. They want to make sure they don't look stupid.
Yeah.
And nurturing them and making sure they feel comfortable. And then seeing that light go on in them. Oh, I did quite well, didn't I? Or that felt good, or that looked good.
Yeah.
So it's so rewarding.
Yeah. When people who are not in the industry get a little bit of taste of it, and then you sit there and you're like, oh, this is my life. I do this every day, and they're like, oh my god, this is so great.
Literally getting somebody to move in time with the music lights people up. It's crazy.
Yeah,
it's so. That's my favorite.
Innate in us, isn't it? We like dance. Most toddlers dance before they can even walk.
Yeah,
like they hold on to something.
There's loads of videos. I've never seen any of these videos, but I'm sure I have maybe once. But there's like videos of babies bopping, and when they get the beat, they laugh.
Yeah,
they're like,
yeah.
Because it is innate in us.
Definitely.
And that's the thing when you see someone come alive, that is just like, oh, that's the good stuff. Even if for me, it's simple. You know, watching someone nail simple musicality, oh, so satisfying.
Yeah.
And because, complicated isn't always good.
No.
Simple musicality can just be like, oh, chef's kiss if someone gets it right. So, yeah, that's the stuff I love.
Love that. What are you working on at the moment?
Nothing.
Again,
I'm in one of those periods of my career where I think I'm never going to work again. Nothing at the moment. I mean, my work is very much, I'll get a phone call and I'll be on something in a few days. We do have the judging that I'm doing. We've got the finals this weekend, so it's the end of dance comp season, which is going to be absolutely crazy. So I've got judging this weekend. But just a lot of teaching and workshops and one-on-one clients, but nothing tangible. I'll keep you posted.
Okay. Yes, please do. Thank you so much for being here and telling us all your stories.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. We have many more incredible guests and conversations coming up, so please subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out. You can find us on all social media platforms under Dance Chat UK. That's the easiest way to get in touch, and we love to hear from you. Also, if you could spread the word and tell your friends about us, we would love to welcome them into our little community. Enjoy your dancing, and I'll see you next time.